Ah, Star Wars. Such a beautiful universe. So much history. So much pain. And suffering. Ugh. Today we will revisit the Star Wars universe, this time with the Clone Wars from Seaman Games. We have been in the Star Wars universe before and we will probably revisit it again because the games just does not stop coming. This is a universe that just keeps on growing for each generation, which is pretty damn impressive actually. I mean, this started years ago and it's still popular. It's amazing. This game is built on the pandemic system, and in this video I am going to show you how to set up the game and go through how to play it. So once you have viewed this video, you will know how to take on the Clone Wars. This is a 1 to 5 player game and it takes about 60 minutes to play. In this setup I'm going to show you the 2-player game, but there's really not that much changes from the 2-player games to the 5-player game to the 1-player game. It is built up in the same way from the start. So let's just have a look at this. This here is the setup of the game. In the middle of the gaming area we place the board. Then we need to choose an enemy that we would like to fight. It is recommended that if this is your first game, you start with Ventress. This card is double-sided. We should place the one with the portrait up to start with. And we place this above the board where it says Villain Sheet. As you can see, this villain has an exclamation mark, meaning that something happens every time you draw a villain card. This card goes above the board, and then we need to set up the villain deck. These villain cards consist of 6 different cards. They will determine what the villain does during their turn. We will put this exclamation mark token above the cards as a reminder that something might happen when we draw these cards. Then we need to take the 2 see-through tokens. We place one on 0 on the threat track and the other one on number 2 on the invasion track. We need to take the 2 mission planet cards and place in the discard pile to create the discard pile. Then we take the invasion deck and we shuffle it real good. We take them and place them face down where it says invasion deck. Now we need to place out all the enemy villains on the board. We do this by first draw the top 2 cards from the invasion deck. On the first 2 cards, we should place 3 droids on these planets. As you can see here, we have a planet name. Here we have a little map showing where on the board that planet is. On the 2 first cards we draw, we place 3 droids, meaning 3 on Toydaria and 3 on Solust. Then we take those 2 cards and we place them in the discard pile. Then we should draw 2 more cards from the invasion deck, but this time we only place 2 droids on these planets. So 2 on Obadiah and 2 on Genesis. Again, the cards goes in the discard pile. Lastly, we draw 2 more cards, but on these we should only place 1 droid each on each planet. But on the last card we draw, we also place our enemy's miniature. And again, we put the card in the discard pile. Each player should also pick a character that they would like to portray as, and put the card face up in front of them. On this card we can see who the character is and their free action. Then each player should take 3 squad cards. This is their starting hand. And lastly, an action card. On one side we can see the actions we can do on our turn, and on the other side we can see our starting planet. In Anakin's case here, it is Camino. The players then take the action card and puts it next to their playing area. Now we also need to set up the mission deck. Depending on which difficulty you want in your game, you should place a different amount of cards here. If you want easy, there should be 3, medium 4, hard 5, and extreme 6 or more. We take these cards and we place them in the mission deck. Then we should flip the top card and put it below where it says mission. This is the orange mission. Now we should take the orange mission token and place it where the planet is. In this case, Genesis. We do the same thing once more, but this time we create the white mission instead. Again, putting out the white mission token where the planet is. Next to the boards we have the rest of the drone minis and the blockade minis. I will tell you more about these in a bit. And we also have the die next to the table. Ready to go. So we are in the Star Wars universe, trying to take care of these damn droids, but also to stop these villains. We also need to complete missions to actually win the game. To do this, we have some actions that we can do, but we also have our squad cards on our hand. These will give us little special extra benefits that we can use during our gameplay, but also to complete the missions. In this game, we work together as a team, but each player takes their turn, then the enemies do their turn, then the next player do their turn, the enemies, and so on. During your turn, you can do 4 actions, and you can do the same action several times, but you also have a free action on your character's card, and depending on which character you are, you can of course do different type of free actions. The player's turns plays out during 4 different steps. The first one is the ready cards. This step is of course not done during your first turn of the game, since all of your cards would be in a ready state at the start of the game. But if this is, for example, your second turn and you have exhausted one of your cards, meaning that you have used its ability, the first thing you would do during your next turn is to ready that card. When we have readied any exhausted cards, we go into step number 2. And this is where we do our 4 actions. And there are some different actions that you can choose to do. The first one is to fly. This is where you simply go from one planet to another. One step is 1 action, but you could use all of your 4 actions to move 4 steps between the planets. The way you would move is to simply take your little figure here and move it to one connected planet to another connected planet on the maps. As you can see, there are map roads connecting the different planets, and you need to follow those roads. Some cards in your squad will allow you to fly further than just 1 step per action. To use this ability, you simply exhaust that card. The second action you can choose is to reinforce, meaning that you simply draw 1 card from the squad deck, and then you place it on your hand. Remember I said that you have a maximum hand level of 7, but even if you have 7 cards in front of you, you can still draw a new card. But you need to discard one that you have on your hand. But this is a good way of you getting rid of exhausted cards that you have used. This will get you a new card on your hand, ready to go. The next action you can choose to do is to attack your enemies, because you cannot attempt to complete any missions if there are villains on that planet. The normal droids here, they have a health of 1. The blockades here, they have a health of 2. The villain's health is stated on their villain card. Before you can damage any of the droids or villains, you need to take care of the blockade first, as this one is protecting all of the others. You will make damage on the villains by rolling this die. As you can see on the die, there are 2 different symbols. The one up here, this means that you have hit your target and made damage. The one below means that you will take damage. When you have rolled your die, you have a result. But as you can see here, you only made 2 damage, meaning that you have way too little to take care of all of these. So what can you do? Well, this is where your squad might come in hand, because some of them will add to your result. Like Cult and Gree here, for example, add 1 success to your attack action. And you can use them by simply exhausting their cards. Now you have added 2 hits to your attack. So now we take the value from the die itself, but also from your squad, giving us 2 plus 2. So we have made 4 damage. The big blockade here had 2 in health, remember, and we need to remove that one first. Once we have removed that one, we can choose if we want to make damage to the villain or just remove the 2 droids. We still have 1 villain left here on the planet, so we can't take care of the mission just yet, but at least we're getting there, right? But remember, on the die itself, we also had 1 damage symbol. Meaning that after we have damaged all of the enemies and there are still enemies left on the planet, we need to take damage as well. The way the players take damage is that they discard one of their squad cards. So this one here, for example. I still have a lot of cards left, so it's not that bad. Some of your squad cards actually gives you armor and will let you prevent damage. You use them by simply exhaust them as well. The last action available is to try to resolve a mission. And just like the battle, we can work together if we are on the same planet here. And of course, depending on which mission we need to complete, different requirements is needed. But now we are on Malastair and trying to resolve this mission here. There is a little droid here, but they don't matter, remember, it's only villains and blockades that actually blocks you from trying to complete the mission. We are trying to complete the Silo Beast mission. Here we have some squad symbols. We have a number, this is the number of amount of successes we need to get to complete the mission. Next to the number we have 2 damages, and this is the amount of damage that we will take at the end of the mission. Now, we have rolled the die and we have received 2 successes, which is quite far away from 9. So how do we get from 2 to 9? Well, we use our squad. Because up in the left corner on our squad cards, we have symbols. And if the symbols matches the ones on the card, we can exhaust those cards and then add them to the amount that we have on our die. So now we went from 2 to 3, 4, 5. And of course our teammates get to jump in and help as well if they are located on the same planet. So if the amount of successes from the die, the squad cards, matches up with the number on the mission, we have now completed this mission. And we can remove it from the mission space next to the board. But first we need to take the damage, remember? This one says 2 damage, meaning that we should discard 2 of our cards. If there would have been any damage symbols on the die, we would have needed to take that damage as well. But at least we have completed a mission. Now we get to discard this mission card and reveal the next card from the mission deck. We take that card and we place it face up where the other mission was. Now we need to take this little mission token here and place it out where the new mission location is. In this case, Genesis. So that was the 4 actions that the players can do. When the player have done all of their 4 actions, we move into step number 3 of a player's turn. This is where we need to activate the villain. Before we draw a villain card, we need to see if they have any special abilities. That's why we have this token to remind us, remember? Because otherwise we will forget about this. On Ventress here it says that if Ventress is on a mission planet, we need to advance the threat. And in this case she actually is, meaning that now we need to advance the threat by 1. Once we have taken care of this one here, we need to draw the top card from the villain deck. When we have drawn the card, we do whatever it says on the card. And it depends on if the villain is on the board itself or if they are off the board. So if Ventress is on the board, she simply moves 1 step towards the closest mission. But if she's off the board, we need to place her on the board again. And then we have the little symbol here indicating that we should look at the top card of the invasion discard pile. Meaning that if Ventress was off the board, we would now need to put her on Mandalore. And that's the way you activate the villain. It's quite simple. You simply flip over the card, you do whatever it says, and then you put it in the discard pile. Of course, there is more or less advanced enemies. The Ventress is not that complicated, and she pretty much does the same thing over and over again. She wants to get to the mission planet and be in your way as a little pain in your posterior. But now we move into step number 4, the Invade Planets step. This is where the droids are flying out to the different planets, and this is where things start to get messy. During the invasion step, we need to first look at the invasion track to see where the token is. In this case, number 3. Now we need to draw as many invasion cards as the token is on, meaning that we need to draw 1, 2, and 3 invasion cards from the invasion deck. Now we need to put 1 droid on each of these planets. Whenever you are instructed to place more than 3 droids on the same planet, you don't. Instead, you place a blockade on the planet itself, and then you raise the threat level by 1. And that's the way a player plays out his or her turn. Once they are done with all of the steps, the turn moves on to the next player and they will complete the same steps. This is the way the game goes on until we have completed the last mission. Once this one is completed, we discard that one. But now we flip over the villain's card. Remember, they were double-sided. On this card, we have some final setup. We need to set this up and then complete the last mission on this card. If we manage to complete that mission, we win the game. But if the threat level reaches the final step, well, then we lose. The threat can rise in 4 different ways. The first one I've already told you. If there's 3 droids on a planet and you were to place number 4, you instead raise the threat. If you are ever to place any droids or blockades out on the planets but the supply is empty, you need to raise the threat once per enemy unit that you cannot place. Or if the invasion track reaches the last number and you were to raise it again but you can't because there's no more numbers left, you raise the threat by 1 as well. Also, some villains do have abilities that does raise the threat, so you need to keep an eye on that one. And that is how you play Star Wars: The Clone Wars from Seaman Games. If you have played Pandemic before, you will recognize a lot of the system from that one, and you will learn the game in no time. But also, if you have never played Pandemic before, you will still learn this game quite fast. It is not that hard to learn. But there are a lot of strategic moments in this game where you have to figure out how to actually resolve the missions. And the more missions you need to resolve, of course, the harder the game gets. It gets quite hard pretty fast because the invasion level and the threat level rises quite fast. There will be droids everywhere out on the map when you play this game, and you need to really manage the threat to keep it down and not reach the end of that track, because it's quite hard to stop it once it has gone too far. The missions themselves are not that hard to complete if you are really working together, but it is hard to complete the mission, defeat the enemies, and do it before the threat goes down to actually complete all of the missions. Like I said at the start of the game, you set the difficult levels yourself. So if you have 3 missions, of course it's going to be easier for you. But if you have 6 or more missions, man, this is gonna get hard. The rulebook is really well written. There's pictures explaining everything. There are examples showing exactly what they mean. There's not that much text. There's not that much symbols in this game either that you need to learn. You will sit down and read this and you will get a hang of this game pretty fast. This game comes with 6 really classic and iconic Star Wars heroes that any Star Wars fan will recognize with ease. They all have their special abilities, they all have their own fine little artwork that will make any Star Wars fan happy and proud. As well as 4 iconic and cool little enemies here. All of them with their special abilities as well. They have special missions on the backside, And depending on which one you choose, there will of course be different challenges for you to complete. And then we have the solo mode in this game, which I really like because there's no difference from the solo game or the co-op mode game at all. The only thing is that when you play solo, you are in charge of 2 heroes at once. And you use this little token here to easy keep track on which hero is doing their turn. And I really like that when you do not change too much from the base game to the solo game. Each villain and hero also have their own little miniature to go out on the map and fight with, which I think is just a cool little feature in a game in this price class. They did not have to throw in minis in this game, we would have done without it, but this just adds up the game a little bit and makes the whole experience a little bit more fun. At least I think so. That was Star Wars The Clone Wars from Seaman Games, a 1 to 5 player game, around 60 minutes of gameplay, depending on how many you are, of course. This game is a lot of fun, it's easy to set up, it's easy to learn, it's easy to play. Pretty much anyone can learn it. It does not take that long time to play, it does not take that long time to lose, because things might get out of hand quite fast in this game. If you're into the pandemic system, I think you're gonna like this a lot. If you're into Star Wars, if you're into miniatures, if you're into just lighter games, this would probably be right up your alley. If you want to know more about the game, there will be links down in the description, so be sure to check that out. If you like the video, you know what to do, right? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, throw in a comment, interact with me. I would love to interact with you. Until next week, people, please keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have.